Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the life and career of Kim Sae-ron,
Yeah.
a beloved actress in Korean cinema who sadly passed away very recently.
Hmm.
Um, I know it's a tough topic,
Yeah, it is.
but I think it's important to look back
Right.
at her incredible journey and all that she accomplished in her too short time in the spotlight.
Absolutely. Her story really encapsulates, I think, the highs and lows of the Korean entertainment world,
Yeah.
especially for those who start their career so young.
Right. So for anyone who might not be, super familiar with her work, Kim Sae-ron's acting career began way back in 2009 when she was only 9 years old.
Wow.
Can you even imagine being in the acting world at that age?
It's almost unheard of in most places.
Right.
But in South Korea, it's not entirely uncommon.
Yeah,
The thing is, child actors there face immense pressure and expectations.
I bet.
They often go through rigorous training and have to juggle demanding filming schedules with their education.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to handle, even for adults.
Yeah, it's wild. And she didn't just manage it, she thrived. Only a year after her debut, she landed a major role in the film The Man from Nowhere with Won Bin.
Right.
Didn't that movie just blow up in Korea?
It did. The Man from Nowhere was a massive box office hit in 2010
Wow.
and really put Kim Sae-ron on the map. Her performance in that film, even at such a young age, was absolutely captivating
Yeah.
and earned her a ton of critical acclaim. She had this amazing ability to convey such raw emotion, which is pretty rare for a child actor.
So from there, it sounds like she was on an upward trajectory. A couple of years later, she starred in another thriller, The Neighbor. Was she deliberately choosing those darker, intense roles, or was that just how things were going in the Korean film industry at the time?
It's interesting you point that out because The Neighbor really solidified her talent and versatility.
Okay.
But it also highlighted the challenges that child actors in Korea often face as they transition into more mature roles.
Right.
It's a tough shift to make, especially in a culture that's so image conscious.
What exactly does that mean, image conscious? I mean, I can kind of guess,
Sure.
but I'd love to hear your take on it.
It's all about maintaining a very specific public persona.
Okay.
In the Korean entertainment industry, there's this intense pressure to conform to certain ideals and expectations.
Yeah.
And for young actors who are literally growing up in the public eye,
Right.
it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
I bet it makes you wonder how they handle that pressure, especially without the life experience that most adults have to draw on.
That's a really crucial point. The support system for these young actors is incredibly important.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that,
Okay.
I think it's worth talking about Kim Sae-ron's later career, specifically her last project, Bloodhounds, which felt like a real turning point for her.
Right. Oh, yeah, Bloodhounds came out in 2023, right? It seemed like a deliberate move on her part to take on those more adult roles and shed that child actor image. Do you think she was successful in that?
I think so. Bloodhounds definitely presented a different side of her. You could see her willingness to evolve and push herself as an actress, taking on characters with more depth and complexity. It felt like she was finally coming into her own.
But then tragically, the DUI incident happened in 2022, right? I can only imagine how that must have impacted her career, especially given everything we've just talked about regarding image in Korean culture.
It's sadly true. The incident really shook things up to her. Not only were there legal repercussions, like a hefty fine,
Yeah.
but it also dealt a blow to her public image. DUIs are taken incredibly seriously in South Korea.
Right.
And for someone in the public eye, the backlash could be swift and severe.
So it wasn't just a legal matter, it was a cultural one, too.
Yeah.
It must have been really tough for her to navigate all of that. Do you think the public was ever able to preparate her from that incident, or did it kind of linger?
It's hard to say for certain, but the incident definitely cast a shadow over her career,
Yeah.
even as she tried to move forward. I think it's important to acknowledge that as part of her story, even as we celebrate her talent and the impact she had on Korean cinema.
You're right. It's all part of the complex picture of her life. I'm curious, though, how significant were the repercussions for her professionally? Did she lose any projects or endorsements because of it?
There's no doubt that the incident had a significant impact.
Okay.
She did lose several endorsement deals, and there were rumors of her being dropped from projects.
Wow.
Although it's difficult to confirm the specifics, the Korean entertainment industry is very image conscious, as we've discussed.
Right.
And companies are often quick to distance themselves from celebrities involved in scandals, especially those that challenge societal norms.
That makes sense, but it also sounds incredibly harsh.
It can be, and it highlights the double-edged sword of fame,
Yeah.
particularly in a culture that places such high value on public perception. But I think it also speaks to a larger conversation that's been happening in South Korea about celebrity accountability and the consequences of their actions.
That's definitely a conversation worth having, especially in today's world where everything is so public and scrutinized. But for Kim Sae-ron, it must have felt like a huge setback, especially at a time when she was trying to break free from her child actor image and embrace more mature roles.
Absolutely. It's a tragic situation on many levels. And it's important to remember that despite her talent and achievements,
Yeah.
she was still a young woman trying to find her way in a demanding and often unforgiving industry.
It's a lot to process, and I think it's a good time to take a moment to acknowledge the impact Kim Sae-ron had on her fans and the entertainment industry as a whole. We'll continue our deep dive after a quick word from our sponsors.
Welcome back, everyone. It's been a heavy discussion so
It
far.
has.
But I think it's important to talk about these things, especially when we consider the pressures and expectations placed on young actors,
Right.
particularly in a culture as intense as Korea's.
You're spot on. We often forget that behind the glitz and glamour, these are real people with real struggles,
Yeah,
especially those who start their careers so young. And thinking about Kim Sae-ron's journey, it makes me wonder what kind of support systems are actually in place for these young actors. Is there anything comparable to, say, child labor laws for the entertainment industry?
that's a great question. While South Korea does have regulations regarding child performers,
Okay.
the focus is often more on limiting working hours and ensuring access to education.
Right.
There are growing concerns about the emotional and psychological well-being of these young stars,
Yeah.
but specific support systems for their mental health are still developing.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, it's one thing to protect them physically, but the emotional toll of being in the spotlight from such a young age must be immense.
Absolutely. And that's where I think a shift in mindset is crucial.
Okay.
We need to move beyond just seeing these young actors as commodities or moneymakers and start recognizing them as individuals who need support and guidance just like any other young person.
Well said. It's about fostering a culture of care and understanding within the industry, right? Not just focusing on box office numbers or social media engagement.
Precisely. And that requires open conversations, accessible resources, and a willingness to prioritize mental health alongside professional success.
Right.
It's a collective responsibility, not just something that could be left to individual actors or their families to handle.
As much as we've talked about the DOI incident and the shadows it cast, I think it's important to remember and celebrate the positive aspects of Kim Sae-ron's career and the impact she had.
Couldn't agree more. Kim Sae-ron's talent was undeniable, and even at a young age, she had this incredible ability to draw audiences into the stories she was telling.
Her performance in The Man from Nowhere, for example, is still so vivid in my mind. That movie was a masterpiece. And her portrayal of Somi, that young girl caught in this dangerous situation, was absolutely heartbreaking. She held her own next to Win Bin, which is saying something.
It really is. The Man from Nowhere was such a success both domestically and internationally. It solidified Kim Sae-ron's status as a rising star
Yeah.
and really showcased her range and versatility, but it also exposed her to the intensity of the Korean film industry at a very young age.
I'm curious, thinking back on The Man in Nowhere and then watching her later work like Bloodhounds, do you see a clear evolution in her acting style or approach to her roles?
Absolutely. The Man from Nowhere called for a certain vulnerability and innocence that she conveyed perfectly.
Right.
But as she matured, you could see her taking on roles that demanded more nuance and complexity. The Neighbor, for example, was a completely different genre,
Okay.
a suspenseful thriller that relied on atmosphere and psychological tension. Her performance in that film showed a different side of her talent.
And even in Bloodhounds, despite everything she was going through off screen, she still delivered a powerful performance. It really felt like she was coming into her own as an actress, willing to push boundaries and take risks.
It's a testament to her dedication and professionalism. It's unfortunate that her career was cut short because it felt like she was just scratching the surface of her potential.
I feel like we've been focusing a lot on the darker aspects of her story, and I think it's important to shift gears a bit and talk about the legacy she leaves behind. What do you think will be her lasting impact on Korean cinema?
Well, first and foremost, her films will continue to be watched and enjoyed by audiences for years to come.
Right.
But beyond that, I think her story serves as a reminder of the complexities of fame, the pressures faced by young actors, and the need for greater support and understanding within the industry.
And perhaps her story can help spark a larger conversation about those issues and lead to positive change, right?
I hope so. It's a conversation that's long overdue. But on a more personal level, I think Kim Sae-ron's legacy is one of resilience, talent, and the power of storytelling. Even in the face of adversity, she never lost sight of her passion for acting and her ability to connect with audiences.
Beautifully put, and it makes me think about how her films, beyond just entertainment, might have touched individual viewers on a deeply personal level. Have you ever had a moment like that with one of her films where it really resonated with you beyond just enjoying the story?
You know, there's a scene in The Neighbor that always stuck with me. Yeah, it's a powerful scene,
Yeah,
and it really showcases her ability to convey those complex emotions.
that's so true. Sometimes a film just hits you in a way you weren't expecting.
Hmm.
But, even as we talk about her legacy in the industry, I can't help but think about all the people out there who were simply fans of her work. What do you think Kim Sae-ron's passing means for them?
It's undoubtedly a huge loss for her fans. You know,
Right.
they grew up watching her on screen, saw her evolve as an actress, and felt a connection with her through her performances.
Yeah.
And that sense of loss, I think, is amplified by the fact that her career was tragically cut short, leaving so much potential unrealized.
It's almost like a shared grief, right? Not just for the person she was, but for the future we imagined for her.
Exactly. And I think that speaks to the power of art and the way it can touch our lives in ways we don't always anticipate.
Yeah.
Kim Sae-ron's films brought joy, excitement, and emotional depth to her viewers,
Right.
and those memories and feelings will stay with them long after her passing.
It makes me think about how sometimes we take for granted the impact that actors and artists have on us. It's easy to get caught up in the entertainment aspect, but there's a deeper connection there, a shared experience that can be incredibly powerful.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's something worth reflecting on, especially as we remember Kim Sae-ron.
Yeah,
It's not just about the roles she played or the films she made,
right.
but about the way she made us feel the emotions she evoked and the stories she brought to life.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn the conversation over to you, our listener. What resonated with you most about Kim Sae-ron's story? Was it her incredible talent, her resilience in the face of adversity, or perhaps a specific role that left a lasting impression?
Maybe you discovered her films recently, or perhaps you've been a fan from the beginning. Whatever your connection, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Kim Sae-ron's legacy and what her work meant to you.
We've talked a lot about the pressures and expectations placed on young actors, the complexities of fame in Korean culture, and the importance of mental health support within the industry. But ultimately, this deep dive is about celebrating the life and work of Kim Sae-ron, an incredibly talented actress who left us too soon.
And while we mourn her passing, we can also find solace in the fact that her films will continue to entertain and inspire future generations. Her legacy as an artist will live on, and her impact on Korean cinema will be felt for many years to come.
So as we conclude this episode, we encourage you to revisit your favorite Kim Sae-ron film, or perhaps discover one you haven't seen before. Remember the joy she brought to the screen, the emotions she stirred within us, and the stories she shared with the world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.